right, 9.6 factor ax squared plus bx plus c. So this section is not overly different than the section we did before, except for now there's a number going to be in front. It could just be like a -1. It could be, 5. It could be whatever. Okay, it can be positive number, negative number, whatever. It's not just a +1 in front now. If something's not math, it needs to be put away. So, we're going to talk about this new method of doing this. So before, we were looking at, okay, whatever the last term was, we were figuring out what two numbers multiply by each other and that add up to equal, C and then B. So there's not really any new, notes here. It's just a new method that we use. I use the arch method to do this. Those letters don't really stand for anything. It's just that we literally take and we multiply A times C, and that's how we figure this out. So there's going to be more steps to these problems because there's a number in front as far as our factoring. The same rule is going to apply, though, in the end. If you aren't foiling to check and you get it wrong, it's completely wrong, okay? If you check it and you're like, I still can't figure out where I went wrong, at least you checked it and can say, hey, I know this is wrong, but I can't figure out why, okay? Because I understand that you may have a hard time sometimes figuring out what the numbers are or whatever, but you've got to put in the effort to check it if you want credit, okay? So we're just going to jump right in because it's the easiest thing to see this with examples. So these will just say factor the trinomial. And so they start us off with easy ones. They start us off with just a -1 in front. So it's negative x squared plus x plus 20. So I am looking, basically what I want to do is I want to rewrite the middle term, okay? And so to do that, I take and I multiply this first number by this one. And I'm going to be drawing the arch while we're doing examples. You do not have to draw the arch every time. Okay, I'm just doing it so that we can see what's going on. So I'm multiplying -1 times 20. So I need factors of -20 that add up to equal +1. Okay, so the number in front of here. So the only thing that's different is that we're now multiplying by whatever is in front. So what two numbers that multiply together equal -20 and add up to equal +1? -4 and +5, yep. So now, this is where it gets different than the other ones. Previously, we just drew our two parentheses and we put the numbers in. That doesn't work with this one, okay? We have to copy down the first term, so -x squared, and we copy down the last term, so the +20. Then these two numbers here in the middle both get an x put on them, so -x or -4x plus 5x, and then +20. Now I have to do the factor by grouping, okay, which is, I don't know if we've talked about this or if this was talked about while I was gone, but factor by grouping is just taking something out of the pairing. We factor it out of whatever's in common. So we kind of did this the other day when we were factoring out the greatest common factor. It's essentially that, but we're doing this in groups of 2. So I'll be doing it for this group, and then I'll be doing it for this group. So what do these first two things have in common? What's the biggest thing they have in common? A negative, and what else?
X.
And they both have an x. So I take out a -x, and then I draw parentheses, and then that leaves me with an x and a +4. So x plus 4. Now I do the other pair. So I come over here. What is the biggest thing that both of these have in common?
Positive.
Okay, yes, they're both positive, so I'm going to take out a 5. So I take out that +5. And then I'm left with an x plus 4. Now, what do you notice about that? Yes, both things in parentheses are x plus 4. That's another way to know if you're doing this right or not, okay? The two things in the parentheses have to match. If they don't match, something is wrong, okay? So now, the way we write our final answer is we take the two things that are outside, so negative x plus 5, we put that in a parentheses, and then we just bring down one of the x plus 4s, and that's our answer. Okay, so basically we end up with 2 lines of writing and then our final answer. And again, I can check this by foiling, which these are more important, okay? Like we said with the other ones, you really only need to check like the middle term and the last term. But on here, I've got to check everything. So if I do, to check it, the first terms, so that's negative x squared minus 4x plus 5x plus 20. And so then that gives me negative x squared plus x plus 20. And so I have confirmed that I am right. I probably, for the sake of time in class, won't check every single one that we do, but I'll check occasionally here and there because I've been doing this long enough that I know if it's right or not, and the book will tell me if I'm right or wrong. So, but as far as like when you're doing them in your homework and stuff, in this section, you do need to check them all. Okay, when we get to the worksheets, I may or may not make you check them because we'll probably do worksheets on Monday. But for the homework, for the stuff today, you do need to. And I'm going to try not to give you a ton of homework because of it Easter weekend. So, let's see, number 6. Negative a squared plus 12a minus 27. So again, I'm going to do this arch method here. Now, technically speaking, we have been doing the arch method all along, but there was just a positive 1 in front. Okay, so if you're like, I like this method better, you can draw the arch every single time. It's just going to be multiplied by a positive 1 in the previous section that we were doing. Okay, so we've got negative 1 times negative 27 is what? Positive 27. So I need factors of 27, so 2 numbers multiplied that equal 27 that add up to equal 12.
3 and 9.
3 and 9, yep. So now we write this as negative a squared, and then these, some people will argue that it's better to write them in one order than the other, and sometimes you'll notice I may say, okay, let's flip these and write them in this order. That's just because when we start doing this stuff where we're up here where we're taking something out, it'll make your life, like, it'll make it easier to pull something out, but in the grand scheme of things, it does not matter. You will end up with the same answer no matter which order you put them in. So I'm just going to stick with the 3a plus 9a in that order, and then minus 27. So I've got these first 2 grouped together, and then the last 2 grouped together. So what do these 2 things have in common?
They both have a negative and a positive.
Well, let me rephrase. What do those 2 things have in common? It was confusing how I said it. They both have an A. Anything else? Nope. Okay, so I'm going to take out an A. And what does that leave me with for this first grouping? What'd you say? Negative a plus 3. Yep. Negative a plus 3. All right, what about this one?
You take out 9.
9. So positive 9, and what does that leave me with?
A minus 3.
A minus 3. Uh-oh. What's wrong?
They're not the same.
Yeah, and one of them A is negative, and 3 is positive, and the other one A is positive, and 3 is negative. So, even though these things don't necessarily have a sign in common, sometimes we have to take out a sign in order to get them to match. Okay, so that's why I pointed out in the last one that these signs here have to match. It has to look exactly the same. So it does not matter which one I take it out of. Typically we don't like a negative in the first term, but it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to also take out a negative from this one. So this is going to be negative a times positive a minus 3, because I've got to take the negative out of the whole thing, plus 9 times a minus 3. Now these things match, and so we use the stuff outside, so negative a plus 9, still end up with a negative, but it's fine. And then the stuff in the parentheses, a minus 3, and that would be our answer. So then to check it, since obviously I did something that was a little different, we'll go ahead and check this one. First terms gives me negative a squared. Outside terms give me a positive 3a. Inside terms gives me a positive 9a. And then last terms give me a negative 27. And so then that adds up to, that's 12a. And that's what I started with, negative a squared plus 12a minus 27. So I know that that is correct. And it's fine if you want to like cross out the middle and just rewrite it like that instead of having to rewrite the whole thing when you're checking it. Like, that's fine too. All right, any questions on those ones? 'Cause we're getting ready to move into something other than just a negative 1 in front. All right, number 8. Negative 3p squared minus 10p minus 3. All right, so now I have an actual, I'm going to say an actual number. I'm not trying to say one's not a number, but anyways. There's a number other than 1 or negative 1 in front now. So I do the same thing. I'm going to arch this. So I've got negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9. So I need factors of 9 that add up to give me negative 10. Yep, negative 1 and negative 9. Those things multiplied give me a positive 9. Added together give me negative 10. So negative 1 and negative 9. Kind of blurry. So the middle term is going to be rewritten as these two numbers with a p with them. So negative 3p squared minus p minus 9p minus 3. Now, if you feel more comfortable with the 1 written here to help you visualize it, that's obviously fine. But normally we don't write the 1, so I'm not writing it. All right, so I'm going to group these two, and I'm going to group these two. So what can I take out of this first grouping? Negative p. And what am I left with in this first grouping when I do that?
3p.
Huh?
3p is 1.
Yep, and what about the other one? Plus 1, yep. So if we take out everything from something, then we're left with a 1 because we're being multiplied. You can always distribute this back and say, okay, this would be negative 3p squared, and that would be negative p, so that you make sure you get the right thing. Okay. Now, from this second grouping, what can I take out? Negative 3, and that leaves me with what? 3p plus 1. These match, so I'm good to go. And so then we've got negative p minus 3 times 3p plus 1. Now, I'm going to just, this is how I would leave my answer. I'm going to show you the way that the book is writing this answer, just so that you can see it. Because they don't like this negative, that both of these things have a negative in them. What they have done is they've taken a negative out of this, and so they've written the answer as negative parentheses p plus 3 times 3p plus 1. That's also totally acceptable. If you write your answer this way, that is fine, but this is the way that I would write it, and I would just leave it here. And pretty much any book beyond this one would leave it the way I have it boxed. But if you ever see something like this where your answer doesn't look like the book and you see that they have a negative out front, look and see if any of them had a double negative in here like this one, and that's probably all that they did. If that's, you still can't figure out where it was and you foiled and checked your answer and you get back to the original, as long as you get back to the original, you're good. But you can always ask, of course, and I can go over it and look and see if there's something, that we're missing or whatever. And sometimes, the book can be wrong too, so if you're ever, really confused, obviously come ask me, because sometimes the book is known to be wrong also, so. Okay, finally one with a positive number in front. Number 10. 2t squared plus 5t minus 63. All right, so this is a pretty big number here, right? 2 times negative 63. It's going to be a negative number. Now, if you know what that number is, that's fantastic, right? It should be 126, I think. Yeah. So then I need factors of negative 126 that add up to 5. Probably don't know that off the top of your head unless it happens to be these two numbers that get multiplied together, but negative 63 and positive 2 certainly does not equal 5 when I add those things together. So what I may need to do is do my little factor tree and start breaking things down. I know that this breaks into 2 and 63, so I'm just going to come over here. I'll have to deal with the signs in a minute, but I'm going to go ahead and do 2 and 63. What can 63 break up into?
2 and
Can't be 2. It's an odd number.
6 and 9.
7 and 9. And 9 breaks into 3 and 3. Now, you may not always need to go all the way. You might recognize, already, but I need some combination of these numbers that I can combine, that one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative, okay, because it's got to be a negative number here, and I need a positive number here, so that means the bigger number needs to be positive. So can you see any combination of these numbers at the bottom? So this,
14 and 9.
yep, 14 and 9, so it's going to be positive 14 and negative 9, because then that gives me a positive 5, but multiplied still gives me a negative number. So this is one where I would say I do care a little bit about the order. Like I said, you'll get the same answer either way, but it's a little bit easier if I put the even number with the even number. Okay, so things like that are what I'm looking for. So I'm going to write 14t first and then negative 9t, because 63 and 9 are both odd, so more likely something's going to come out of those. If I did it the other way, it's still going to work. It's just going to be a little bit more that I have to figure out of what can I take out of here. Okay, so, and again, that's just a preference on my part. If you like it the other way, you can do it the other way. So 2t squared plus 14t minus 9t minus 63. So I have my two pairings here. So out of this first pairing, what can I take out?
2.
And
2. That was definitely.
so 2t, if I take out a 2t, what am I left with?
T.
And what about the second one?
7.
Plus 7, not t. We've taken a t out. And then what can I take out of this second pairing?
A 9.
9.
Specifically, what kind of 9?
Negative.
Negative 9. Okay, if both things have a negative and I can see that these are positive, I'm definitely going to want to take that negative out. And so then that leaves me with t plus 7. These match, so I'm good to go. So I write down the things outside. So 2t minus 9 times t plus 7. Are we feeling okay after the worksheets and stuff on foiling, or at least better about it? Okay. So we're okay if I'm not checking all of these right now for the sake of time, so I can give you more time to do your work in class? Okay. All right, let's see. 12. 3n squared minus 17n plus 10. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply together to give me 30 that add up to negative 17. Yep, negative 2 and negative 15, because I've got those two things multiplied give me a positive, and added give me that negative number that I'm looking for. Now, this is another one where I might swap these so that I have, you know, the even number with the even number, odd number with the odd number, but I'm actually going to do it the other way this time, where I leave them in this order that I wrote them, just so that we can see another, you know, way. So I've got 3n squared minus 2n minus 15n plus 10. So I'm grouping the first two, grouping the last two. What can I take out of my first group? Yep, just an n, and that leaves me with what in that group? Yep, minus 2. And then what about this pairing here? I'm going to take out a 5. Now, one other thing to note here. Notice that right now this middle sign is positive and this first sign is negative. But notice over here in this parentheses I have a positive then a negative. So what else do you think I might need to take out? A negative. Now, if you didn't recognize that, obviously we could go another step down like we did in one of those earlier ones. But I'm going to try to get us to start seeing these things. So if I take out a negative 5 from this, what am I left with here? 3n. And then what about if I take it out here? Yep, minus 2. Again, these are matching, 3n minus 2 in both of those. So we take what's outside, so n minus 5, and multiply it by one of those parentheses, so 3n minus 2. And we've got that pairing there. 3n minus 2 and n minus 5. Okay. Let's see. 14. Negative 6. There, use k, but I want to use x. X squared minus 13x minus 6. So I need factors of what? 36 that add up to give me negative 13. Negative 9 and negative 4. Those give me a positive. Added together give me a negative. So then copy those over. So negative 6x squared minus 9x minus 4x minus 6. Group the first two, group the last two. What can I take out of the first two? Negative 3, and what else? X. And what does that leave me with?
2x
Plus 3. Yep. Because we took out a negative from both of those. And then what can I take out of this one? Negative what? 2. And what does that leave me with?
2x plus 3.
Yep, 2x plus 3. Notice my parentheses match. So I've got negative 3x minus 2 times 2x plus 3. How are you feeling about this so far?
For homework, do you want us to fully solve it out, or do you just want us to leave it like that?
This is fully solved.
I know, but do you want us to use FOIL?
To check it, yes, you should be checking them. I'm just not, so that y'all have more time to work, so that you don't have to do it this weekend, hopefully. All right, I want you to try this one on your own. We'll do just this one and one more. I'm going to have you guys try them on your own, and if we're good, then I'll go ahead and give you your problems. So start with this one, and then we'll go over it. So 4m squared plus 9m plus 5. So I'll leave one for reference for you. So work that one, see if you can figure it out. Do you have an answer?
4 plus 5 and then plus 1.
Do you agree? So I needed factors of 4 times 5 or 20 that add up to 9. Well, they were really nice in this one and they gave them to you. Although sometimes those are the ones that aren't nice because it kind of throws you for a loop. You're like, well, it can't possibly be the ones that they used. But in this case it was. I think this is the first one that's been that way. Also, this is another random one, but people often forget if the middle term of this one had been 21 instead, the factors would be 20 and 1. A lot of times people forget that factor pairing and they get super confused about like what you can add together that like equals that. So always also remember to check like whatever the number is times it's like times 1. Okay, because that's another one. I don't think we've had one that way yet in anything that we've done, but just be aware that that is another common one, and that's one where people tend to miss it a lot. Or like if it was 19, like it would say it was a negative 20, like 20 minus 1. That's another one. Anyways, so we broke this up into, we took out a 4m, that left us with m plus 1. Over here I took out a 5, left us with m plus 1. So I ended up with 4m plus 5 and m plus 1. And I did go through and FOIL to check, just in case anybody didn't believe my answer. But it seems like we believe my answer, so that's good. All right, one more that I want you to do on your own to try with negatives in it. Number 20, negative 5b squared plus 7b minus 2. Did anybody still need that other one up there, or are we good? Okay. So take a minute, work through this one. Make sure you watch those signs. This one will be a critical one that you check because of the signs of it. Do we have an answer for this one?
5b minus 2 times negative b plus 1.
I have negative 5b plus 2 and b minus 1.
I got negative items. I got negative 5b minus 2.
Abby, say what you had one more time.
5b minus 2 times negative b plus 1.
Okay. Yes, that worked too. I was trying to make sure. I was trying to like process and I just have to see it. Okay. Let me cover this up for a second. All right, this is what I did. Okay. So I had factors of positive 10 that add up to 7. Well, it happened to be 2 and 5. They just weren't negative when I needed to use them. So I combined the 5s together and the 2s together. Again, if you'd done it the other way, you'd get the same answer. I went ahead and factored out a negative b just because I looked at this one and saw that the second number was negative. So I factored out a negative 5b and that was left with b minus 1. Then on the right one, I factored out a 2 and was left with b minus 1. And so then I got negative 5b plus 2 times b minus 1. This is the answer here that the book got that's above my hand written in green. So basically they didn't like that there was a negative in front of the 5b, so they took a negative out. And that's what gave the answer that they have. So then Abby's answer, in case anybody else had this also, is the same thing because they have 5b minus 2. And then basically all that happened is they took this negative and multiplied it by this one. And so you would have negative b plus 1. And so that's basically what she has. Now, again, I think you probably did it up here. You probably took the negative out of this one instead of the negative out of...
Well, I think, like, I forgot to bring the negative down for the negative 5b squared plus 5b. And so then I just had 5b times negative b.
Gotcha. Well, somehow your answer still would have worked. Even if you had that little mistake there, your final answer was right. So anyways, any of those options for how you wrote the answer would all be acceptable. They all work as a final. Yeah. So anyways, any of those would work, but there's that. So your problems, so you have at least 15 minutes. You should be, I think you'll be able to knock these out. If not, then you shouldn't have much to do for homework, because I don't want, I want you to be able to enjoy your weekend. So let's do 5, 7, 9, 13, 15, 19, and 21. So not that many. We will do more practice with these. There's a little bit more to this section where, like the other day, we were factoring in the last section, and then we were starting to solve them. And so these also have a factor and solve. So if these were set equal to 0, we would just follow the process like when we were solving while they were already factored out. And so we'll do that a little bit on Monday, along with probably a worksheet that goes with this stuff to make sure, because factoring is one of those things we just really got to get it down. We'll quiz on Wednesday on 7-4, 7-5, 7-6. There's still 2 more sections in this chapter, but I don't want to keep going without us having a quiz. So after those last 2 sections, we'll have another quiz, and then we'll have a test on the entire thing. So we're a little ways from a test to a point, but also probably not super far. Probably not this coming week, but the week after, probably that Wednesday or Friday, we're looking at a test. So not next week, but the week after. Looking for a test there, so just kind of give you a heads up with what's coming.